the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Sam Armstrong is still with us. Now, Sam, I'm sure you, like me, have every confidence in just how good our wonderful first-class, world-class civil services. And you'll be delighted to hear that civil service middle management has doubled in the past decade, officials being over-promoted to get around a pay squeeze, so you just have to promote them higher, then they can get a pay rise. And those promotions basically have cost the civil service an extra £2 billion a year. Money well spent?
Well, we have to remember that civil service productivity has gone up by how much in the last 30 years?
Oh, is it? What's the number? Oh, is it what?
0.
Yes. Well, then, money well spent.
The private sector, on the other hand, are working harder, they're delivering more, and they're paying the taxes. For what? Middle management in HR. Rachel from Accounts and Sally from
Accounts
HR.
and everyone else. Well, look, let's talk about this with William Yarwood. I've got on Mike Yarwood moment there. William Yarwood, he's the media campaigns manager at the Taxpayers Alliance, who got to these figures. Very, very good afternoon to you, William.
Good afternoon, Julia. And don't worry about the mic thing. Jeremy Kyle did the exact same thing.
I'm so sorry. It's just of a generation. It's just in your head. I do apologise, William. I mean, these stats are extraordinary. And we see this all the time. Just of people being pushed sideways in the civil service. Bumped upwards. But basically, look, we're not allowed to give you an above-inflation pay rise. So we'll just give you a better job that comes with a pay rise. But then people basically are promoted often above their abilities, as is often the case in many organisations. And then we're paying them a load more for a long time, but they're now in a job where they're managing other people, but not very well. It kind of explains the mess we're in the civil service, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. I mean, Britain essentially couldn't be summed up better than a country run by incompetent middle management, could it? I mean, that's a perfect analogy for modern Britain.
Yeah.
But yeah, these stats are quite extraordinary. I mean, we did a little briefing, though, just a few months ago, towards the end of last year, that actually showed that the civil service was about 3.7 times bigger than His Majesty's Armed Forces, for crying out loud. So the civil service has grown and grown and grown. And actually, in 2024 alone, there was the biggest increase in the civil service jobs for the last few years. But like Sam said earlier, he took the words right out of my mouth. If there was a level of public sector productivity that's high, things were being delivered, ministers were getting what they needed and what they wanted, I don't think many people have much an issue with this kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is they're not, because they're not turning up for work, they're doing useless HR and equality, diversity, inclusion roles, and they're wasting millions of pounds of taxpayers' cash while they're doing it.
I mean, the stats are extraordinary. Now, since 2010, the lowest ranks of the civil service, so assistants and administrative officers, that's fallen by 45%. They reckon basically because routine clerical work is now automated, everyone's just doing stuff on the computers and things. But every other rank has grown, and the biggest increase is the number of grade 6 and grade 7 officials. Basically, they're below the senior civil service. But, these people are on good money, and their numbers are up 121%. So they've more than doubled to almost 78,000 people. That's 1 cent to the civil service, twice the proportion in 2010. But this is the extraordinary thing is, if you've got fewer lower grade workers, you wouldn't need more upper grade workers to manage them, because you'd need fewer to manage them. So we're just basically paying a load of these people a load more money. And again, it's not just their wages, it's their absolutely gold-plated pensions as well. Often a huge percentage of their salary being guaranteed to be paid to them by the taxpayer in the future. Sort of pensions which, I mean, not even no one in the private sector has got.
No, not at all. And if actually those public sector pensions, like you said, which are gold-plated, are not reformed, it actually could end up bankrupting Britain as we know it. I mean, we're pretty bankrupt already as it is, with a £2.7 trillion national debt. But nevertheless, the way in which you deal with this is by government ministers and the Prime Minister himself being bold and saying that they need to reduce civil service numbers. And Keir Starmer himself actually said that he cut about 100,000 civil service jobs. And do you know what happened? The head of the trade union that looks after civil service came out and accused him of being a Trumpian populist and using disgraceful language about our wonderful civil service. So as soon as a Labour Prime Minister repeats words that Conservative ministers and Conservative special advisors have been saying for the last few years, granted they didn't do anything about it, but that's not a surprise for Tories, is it? But the fact that Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer said this, and the immediate reaction was that proves that the amount of resistance there is to reform in the civil service.
Yeah.
And until ministers, until the Prime Minister, and until politicians just in general grow a bit of a spine and recognise this is one of the core reasons why nothing works in this country, then nothing's going to be done.
And this is the thing, it's all very well saying we're going to be boosting growth. But again, growth has to come from the private sector. You know, the public sector is there to provide, you know, health service and education and you know, things to transport, infrastructure, you know, things to function to allow the private sector to grow, make money, pay taxes and pay for everything. It's this wonderful circular thing, and it should be sort of symbiotic, very healthy relationship, but not here, because most of the time it's the public sector holding back the private sector, preventing people building, preventing investment, preventing anyone getting anything done, even just down to sort of the bottlenecks in the systems, you know, like planning and things like that, where you just can't get anything done. You can't get paperwork through. You can't get, people couldn't get a driving licence. You know, you still have to wait. I mean, God, you have to wait 6 months to get a driving test in large parts of the country, even now. Oh, because of COVID. COVID was 5 years ago, for goodness sake, and that's still an ongoing problem. And again, these are the bottlenecks imposed by top administration. But we're constantly told still we've got the first class, world class, politically neutral, civil service in the world. That is blatantly untrue now, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. I mean, you look at the amount of equality, diversity, inclusion officers inside various government departments, and the amount of civil servants who spend their entire time role-playing as trade union revolutionaries during their trade union facility time hours. So the idea that there's some sort of neutrality in the civil service is completely nonsense. And also there was a really interesting Guardian article just a few months ago.
I've never heard anyone say that before.
I know, well, you know, first time for everything, isn't there, Julia? But there was a really interesting Guardian article by an anonymous civil servant saying that Labour was in power and civil servants can now finally learn to breathe again. Because, of course, the real problem was Tories criticising the civil service for a lack of productivity.
Or just expecting the civil service to do what they are supposed to do and act like servants of elected representatives and do as they're sodding well told. Come on, that's all we ever asked for. William, son of Mike Yarwood, William Yarwood, Media Campaigns Manager at Taxpayers Alliance, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Sam Armstrong, I mean, look, you know, you've worked with a lot of people who've worked in government the last 14 years. I mean, basically, the civil service tried to stop Brexit, and they tried to stop anyone getting anything done, tried to stop us acting with illegal migration, reform of the NHS, you name it. I mean, the civil service now are part of the problem.
Yeah, and any minister that sought to stand up to them was immediately almost thrown out after a campaign of leaks, complaints.
All the prominent Brexiteers, they went for Priti Patel, Dominic Raab.
And look, it's no excuse, but there is a reason why the Tories ended up being so wet and so disappointing, and part of it was the fact that if you tried to do anything that the establishment disliked doing, they would come for you.
Yeah, I have to say, it seems like the civil servants wanting to go on strike now if they're asked to go into the office for just 3 days a week. Very, very simple. I would do what Elon Musk at X. I expect you all in the office on Monday. Anyone who's not in the office, I will consider you to have tendered your resignation. End of. Nothing to discuss. Same